Last season, Chelsea were awful. They had a squad that was so bloated they had no chemistry. They burned through 3 managers, and they finished 12th. That's below Crystal Palace. And we all had a good laugh at Chelsea because of that. In a game where money seems to control everything, for a team to spend so much and fall flat on their face was kind of refreshing. But we all expected Chelsea to bounce back again this season, just like they did after their terrible 15-16 campaign. But they haven't. We're still very early in the season, but Chelsea are 12th yet again. Only 4 points from 4 games, with their only win coming against relegation favorites Luton Town. At this point, I decided to take a step back and look at this Chelsea team, and what I found was kind of alarming. This team just might not be that good. What do you mean, you might ask? This is a team that won the Champions League 2 years ago, and then reinforced the squad with over $1 billion worth of signings. How can they not be good? Well, first let's go back to that Champions League winning team and really examine who is left from it. Best player on that team, N'Golo Kante, gone. Goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy, gone. In defense, Azpilicueta, Rudiger, gone. Jorginho, he's playing for their rivals. Same with Havertz and Mount. Their last attacker, Timo Werner, is also gone. Even key depth pieces like Pulisic, Giroud, Kovacic, and Christensen, they're all gone. The only players that remain are Thiago, Silva, Reece James, and Ben Chilwell. And that's compared to a Man City team that they faced who've retained 7 of their starters and their manager. This isn't that Champions League winning team. Okay, so the core of that Champions League winning team is gone. But Chelsea bought so many players, some of them have to be good replacements for the guys who've left. Well, let's go over the proven top Premier League players from Chelsea's team right now. You have the 3 holdovers, Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell, and Reece James, and I'd add Raheem Sterling. That's it. This isn't to say any of their young players won't prove themselves and won't prove themselves this year, especially Enzo Fernandez. It'd be stupid to suggest that none of them will. This is a bit like me saying that Gvardiol hasn't proven himself in the Premier League yet. I mean, he technically hasn't, but we can see the talent level. But the thing is, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of players that Chelsea have bought in who just haven't proven themselves yet. Take a look at Cole Palmer. He's really only showcased his talent in the Community Shield and the Super Cup. And that's not to say I don't think he's a talented player. I like Cole Palmer. But to spend that much money on him after 1 or 2 good performances? That's a very risky investment. And that's a common theme for these players. They were signed for a ton of money after very short periods of success. Take Enzo Fernandez, a player who I really like and I think is the closest thing to a sure thing in this Chelsea squad. He came over to Europe with Benfica in the summer of 22, broke into the team, broke into the Argentina squad, looked good for Benfica, helped Argentina win the World Cup, and after that 6-month span, Chelsea paid over $100 million for him. Again, I like Enzo Fernandez, but that doesn't seem like great business from Chelsea. Then there's his midfield partner, Caicedo. He broke into Brighton's lineup for the first time last season and had a very good year as a defensive midfielder. Then Chelsea broke the bank for him. Again, I think Caicedo's a good player, and Conte only had 1 good Premier League season before Chelsea bought him, and that worked out great. But they spent a combined $200 million on 2 players with a combined 18 good months. That's a very risky idea, and it goes beyond just those 2. Nick Jackson had a very good run in La Liga, scoring 9 goals in 8 games. $35 million. Mudryk, a very good run in Ukraine. $70 million. Chelsea are making some big risks with their signings. These players have a lot of talent, but are unproven at their top level. And even with some of their more proven signings, I'm not completely sold. Nkunku was amazing in the Bundesliga, great for RB Leipzig. But if they just stick him up top like they did with Timo Werner, why would Chelsea expect it to go any differently? Roberto Sanchez lost his starting place at Brighton, and Chelsea brought him in to be their starter. Then there's Diassi, who reads to me as a panic buy. And then the rest of their team is still pretty unproven. Gusto looks like a promising young player, but he's not a right back who you'd expect to be in a team competing for a top 4 place. Levi Colwill is an amazing talent who I fully believe will be a starter for England by the next World Cup, and could probably be one of the best center backs of the Premier League in a short period of time. But he's very young and he's had some growing pains this year. Then there's Conor Gallagher. You see the Crystal Palace jersey in the background. I loved what he did for Crystal Palace. I don't think Chelsea's his level. And I want to make it clear that I rate a lot of these young players on Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez can become a genuine superstar. Levi Colwill could become the best center back in the Premier League, and Moises Caicedo might be the heir to Conte. But that's coulds and cans and mights. In terms of the proven top-level Premier League players in this Chelsea squad, there are only the four that I mentioned earlier. And Reece James is always injured, and Thiago Silva is older than Wayne Rooney. I have genuine concerns about the talent level of this Chelsea team. I mean, let's make a combined 11 between Chelsea and Aston Villa right now. Aston Villa, very good team, but they're expecting to challenge for the top 7 places, not top 4. In goal, I'm taking Martinez. At the back, I'm going with Thiago Silva and Pau Torres as center backs, Konsa on the right, Ben Chilwell on the left. In the midfield, it's Enzo, Caicedo, and John McGinn. On the wings, Sterling and Diaby, and then Ollie Watkins up top. That's 6 Aston Villa players. They have the majority. Now, you can argue one or two of those positions, and I did exclude 2 injured players in Reece James and Nkunku. But I think you can see my point that Chelsea have a very comparable squad to Aston Villa. And when I look at the ceiling of this Chelsea team, I think their best result can be qualifying for the Europa League, not competing for the title, not even challenging for top 4. Okay, so let's say I sold you on the talent level. Why would this even be a big deal? Let's say this entire Chelsea team sucks. Bully could just spend another billion on the team and they'd be fine. Well, I'm not sure he can do that again. Now, this is something pretty complicated that other people can explain better than me, but Chelsea have been amortizing their transfers, meaning they've been pushing off their current fees and being able to stay within regulations despite spending billions, because they're signing players to extremely long contracts, which allows them to push off their current money into future windows. But in the process of doing it, they might be limiting how much they can spend in those future windows. And if that is the case, Chelsea will need this team, this current group of players to step up. They will need all of those unproven guys to pan out, and I'm not sure if that happens. And in terms of what ifs, what if Thiago Silva's body breaks down? That defense would be terrible without him. What if Moises Caicedo doesn't work out? The midfield is dysfunctional. And what if their strikers aren't clinical? If all of those things happen, they're probably worse than the team that finished 12th last year. And then what if governing bodies actually come down hard with regulations on Chelsea? Now, this is all worst case scenario thinking. I acknowledge that Chelsea spent a ton of money on some really talented young players, and it'd be foolish to suggest that none of them will pan out. I'd argue it'd be easier for them to pan out. They're surrounded by well-proven players, but I think that some of them will just end up becoming good. And if I'm being real, I don't think that Chelsea will be hit hard at all with regulations. They won't be punished for overspending. And if I'm being honest with myself, the way that I'm feeling about Chelsea right now, I was actually feeling about Arsenal a few years ago. Doubts if their young players would pan out, questions about their talent level. But Arsenal turned things around really quickly, and I can easily see Chelsea doing the same. There's a world for Chelsea where everything goes right. Levi Colwill has a breakout season, becomes one of the top young center backs in the Premier League, and starts for England at the Euros. Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo form one of the top midfield partnerships in the league. Jackson and Nkunku play together and become one of the top strike partnerships in the league. Any number of their wingers break out and have a great season. Reece James stays healthy. And if all of that happens, Chelsea are going back to the Champions League, and they're probably the best team equipped to challenge Man City. But if just a few of those things don't happen, I don't see how Chelsea can be a team that regularly challenges for Champions League places anymore, and I see them becoming more like Tottenham. And that's without the possibility of them getting hit with financial fair play regulations. And if that happens and they're not able to make the Champions League consistently and Boehly doesn't see a return on his investment, he might just look to sell the club. Todd Boehly has made a ton of money from the gambling industry, and I believe he's taking a gamble on this Chelsea team right now. But if this one doesn't pay off, he might end up taking the club down with him. This is the first time in a while where I have some real concerns about a top 6 club falling off. Now, I don't think Chelsea will get relegated or anything, but I think there's a possibility they fall away from the tier of top teams in the Premier League and struggle to even reach the Champions League in the future. And I think that's pretty interesting. This is just one possibility, but I could easily see it happening to Chelsea. Oh, yeah, just wanted to talk about that. If you like it, please like and subscribe, and see you.